You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, my name is Ulises Sambrano, and on behalf of Kevin Weiss, we are the host of the Locked On Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making Locked On Rays your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On Rays is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube at Locked On Rays. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Rays, and email us at lockedonrays@gmail.com. Well, it was a series victory for the Rays, which is always a good news to start the homestand in such a manner. I am by myself right now, but you will hear from Kevin Weiss in just a few minutes, as he will be doing a crossover to preview the Blue Jays series that starts tonight with Locked On Blue Jays host Craig Ballard. So that should be really, really fun. So I'm going to be with you for the first segment, and then they both will take care of the rest of the episode. So I'm going to be a good guy, a good cop today, and just mention all of the good things that happened over the weekend. Yes, we know they had the opportunity to sweep the series, and it just couldn't happen. It would have been great because Josh Lowe had that great 3-run shot to tie the ball game, but again, that combination of pitching just mostly by Cooper Criswell, who went 4 2/3 and allowed 5 runs, just was not enough good quality pitching for the Rays to get that victory. But if we want to highlight the positives, I can tell you, I was there on Friday night. I saw Shane McClanahan just pitch incredible, giving 7 innings. And it was a tough pitcher's duel. And it was a really, really fun time being at Randyland. I had a great time. I really feel like that is going to be expanded in the future, because everybody that was in that section was in another type of mood, I feel like. And I think it was a very cool atmosphere. And if you're going to go to a game on a Friday, and you'd like to spend a little bit more money than usual, I think it's a great, you get a lot more out of your ticket if you do go to Randyland. I had a terrific time. I went there with my mom, and we just had a terrific time. So I definitely do think that's something that you should look into. Looking at the weekend, I love Yandy Diaz being back in the lineup. That 3-run shot, I mean, this guy has just been doing it the whole season. So missing him for, half of a week does feel like a forever for Rays fans, but it's so good to see him being healthy and being back in the lineup. He definitely does elongate that lineup whenever he's in it. So that's good news for the Rays. Another good news for the Rays is the fact that not only Shane gave you 7 innings on Friday, but Zach Eflin did as well on Saturday. So what can help the bullpen is the starters giving you some length. So good for both Shane and Zach to kind of give nights off to the bullpen there on those 2 nights. And then Josh Lowe, I really do want to talk about Josh Lowe for a second here. This guy is on fire. The whole regular season, he's hitting .318. He has a 1027 OPS. That's ridiculous. 11 home runs right now, leading the team. He is nine stolen bags. He is a 2020 threat, and watch out for maybe 25-25. He already did a 2020 in AAA. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes 25-25. I mean, he is just seeing the ball terrific. And when you look at his splits, I'm trying to find a flaw, because you kind of want to always pinpoint what is not going well for a player and see if they can improve. But right now, you can't really, say anything with certainty that he has a flaw in. In fact, if I look at the splits between righties and lefties, yes, he only has 15 games, which is 14 at-bats. 14 at-bats against lefties. So obviously a very small sample size. But even in that small sample size, he's hitting .286 with a 983 OPS. Again, very limited sample size, but what he has been doing this whole season is frankly impressive. I don't think anybody would have said that he was a 2025 candidate this year before the season started, and I don't think anybody would have predicted him being the home run leader on May 22nd. And if they tell you that they were lying to you. It's simple as that. He's just having a terrific season, and good for him. He did a lot of changes during the offseason, and they are noticeable, and that's really good. They need a lefty pop, and he is really providing that again alongside Luke Raley, who we should also know. But Josh Lowe, I do want to make a little bit of a spotlight here because he has been fantastic and throughout the season, but even the last 7 games, 308, 379 on base, and a 615 slugging, like 2 home runs. The road trip was his to own. He's been looking really good lately. So Josh Lowe, definitely props for him. And to close out what happened during the weekend, I will say this: I loved the Willy Adames Randy post. I loved it. I think that was great. I think baseball needs more of that. Him making the Randy pose and Randy smiling at him and having that back and forth. I thought that was great. They're buddies. They talked when I was there on Friday during pregame warmups. They spent 10, 15 minutes talking to each other. It was great to see. Willie's a great guy. He was a fan favorite when he was with the Rays. So, of course, he's a clubhouse favorite as well. So it was great to see him. Good for him. We all hope he has a great season. And I just wanted to pinpoint that little human moment. It's good to see human moments during the baseball season and when there's competition. And I believe that that's one of those moments, and I was really happy to see that. So I hope you are too. And if you're not, hey, drop it down in the comments and tell me why you didn't like that. Or if you did like it, drop it down in the comments as well. So that's all for me. Stay tuned as Kevin will be sharing the rest of this episode with Craig Ballard, host of the Locked On Blue Jays. Stay tuned and raise up.
Coming up on the Locked On Blue Jay podcast, we're joined in a crossover conversation with Locked On Rays as we deep dive the woes the Blue Jays have had at the Trop and deep dive tonight's pitching matchup. First, for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. Well, it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, the right prices, all on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guarantee Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Craig Ballard here with Kevin Weiss. Crossover conversation. You know, I always love these. Locked On Blue Jays with Locked On Tampa Bay Rays with Locked On Rays. And oh boy, if I seem nervous throughout this entire conversation and this entire week, it's because I am. I think I'm massively on record as absolutely fearing the Tampa Bay Rays. They always beat the Toronto Blue Jays, and the Jays playing horrible baseball right now, heading into the Trop, the house of horrors for the Blue Jays. Kevin, I think it's one series win. I think it was 2014. The Jays took 6 out of the 10 games at the Trop. In the last 16 seasons, Kevin Weiss from Locked On Rays, it's the only time that the Toronto Blue Jays have won a series at Tampa Bay. So, Kevin, I know you're a good person. I know Locked On Rays is a great follow, but Kevin, you guys have been downright unhospitable to the Toronto Blue Jays when we've come to town the last many years.
Wow, that's amazing. I did not realize or reference that stat beforehand. So maybe that means good things for the Rays this upcoming week.
Uh-oh.
It's surprising because I would think that the Blue Jays playing in a dome, just like the Rays, they would have some familiarity and some comfortableness with that, but I guess not. And this might not be a good week for the Jays to visit the Rays, considering the Rays have been very, very, very good at home so far this season. And like you mentioned, it doesn't seem like the fan base is too ecstatic about what the Blue Jays have going on right now. Last I checked, last in the division right now.
A 10-game homestand the Blue Jays just completed. It started out at 3-0, Kevin, as the Blue Jays swept the hot Atlanta Braves last weekend. But then the Yankees and the Orioles came to town for the last 7 of this homestand. Blue Jays won just 1 game. In fact, Kevin, in the last 11 versus the AL East foes, Blue Jays have but 1 win. It's a real scuffle going on right now. I know it's a winning record, but still, I mean, last place is last place. And the rest of this division is not just going to sit around and wait for the Blue Jays to get their act together.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into these pitching matchups, because I definitely want to pick your brain, because we're talking about the Blue Jays at the Trop. What a nightmare it's been for the Toronto Blue Jays. Literally, Kevin, it's the reason for this. I'll tell you that right now. But I want to go through some numbers here, and these are not for the faint of heart, but just an example of the sort of struggles the Toronto Blue Jays have had at Tropicana Field. So George Springer, in his career at the Trop, 173 hitter. Then come the number 2 hitters, Bo Bichette, 202 hitter with a 571 OPS. Remember now, Kevin, Bo has led the league in hits 2 years in a row and is going to do it again this year. Bo Bichette is a hitting machine.
And he's from St. Petersburg originally. I mean, he's got some familiarity with the area. You would think sleeping in his own bed, he would be okay.
Yes, it has not been the case. Slim Daddy Vladdy hitting just 215 at the Trop. He has just 1 home run career, Kevin, at the Trop. Matt Chapman, the player of the month in April, has been abysmal in May. Well, I don't see this series as the cure for what ails him. He's hitting 159 all time at the Trop. For Varsho, this will be his first time heading to Tampa Bay. Hopefully he can do something for the Blue Jays. Now, some good news. Brandon Belt, 7 for 17 with a double, a triple, and 3 home runs, and an OPS at the Trop of 1.663. So finally, Blue Jay fans, some glass half full. We'll see what what Brandon Belt can do this weekend. Blue Jays catchers, so Kirk and Jansen, Kevin, combined at Tropicana, 13 for 116. That's a 112 average, Kevin Weiss. To state the obvious, going to need to be better. Now, one thing I am excited about in this series is Whit Merrifield. Now, Whit, in this last, we just talking about the 10-game homestand the Jays just had. Whit Merrifield lost 21 points off his batting average in this homestand. He was terrible. 6 for 6 on stolen bases. I will shout that out. But at the plate, he is just looking unrecognizable lately. But 20 for 61, that's a 328 career average at the Trop. OPS over 1,000 at the Trop. And how about this, Kevin? 6 home runs for Whit Merrifield at the Trop. That's by far the most home runs for well, I shouldn't say that. He has 9 at Detroit, but he spent all those years in Kansas City, right, with the unbalanced schedule with Detroit. So of non-AL Central teams, let's put it that way, by far the ballpark that he's hit the most home runs at. Now, glass half full for Blue Jay fans is, yes, the Tampa Bay Rays did lose at home yesterday, but Kevin, glass half empty. My God, that put your record at home at 21-4. Holy moly. What sort of things in particular are going right for you guys at the Trop? All of it,
right?
Well,
a lot of things are going right, I would say. One thing that I don't think can be ignored is the fact that the Trop was the Rays spring training site. So I think that helped a lot of the younger players and veterans get into a rhythm early on, because the original spring training site in Port Charlotte, it was damaged due to Hurricane Ian. So the Rays had really not many or no other choice but to play their spring training home games at Tropicana Field. So I think that got them into a little bit of a groove there. And then offensively, I mean, it is amazing things are being done. We know about what Yandy can do and Randy Arozarena can do and Wander Franco can do, but it's been some of the unheralded, unlikely characters like Taylor Walls going off and Josh Lowe going off and Luke Raley going off. So I'm sure there's a point where the offense is going to come back to earth a little bit, but what helps is basically having everybody healthy and these young players really molding themselves and becoming veterans and just really getting the hang of this Major League Baseball thing very, very quickly. It's funny, you brought up some of the negatives with the Blue Jays hitting. I'm surprised you didn't want to mention Kevin Kiermaier. You didn't want to mention the former Ray doing so well, at least on paper. Everything I've seen and heard is that he's going like gangbusters with the Blue Jays. So maybe that's your ace in the hole there for this series. He can provide some expertise and some guidance to the rest of the roster for this 4-game series.
I sincerely hope so. Yeah, Kevin Kiermaier has been outstanding. And we talked about the road trip, the homestand that just finished where the Blue Jays were brutal. Kevin Kiermaier was not brutal. He has been outstanding, Kevin, and really doing damage to the fastball. It's been an extremely pleasant surprise. It is stunning for Kevin Kiermaier to already be such a fan favorite with the Toronto Blue Jays. This guy was a 4-letter word, Kevin, and any Ray was a 4-letter word, but especially Kevin Kiermaier, right? He was there terrorizing us for a decade in center field, in particular Tropicana Field as well. But you touched on the offense. I do want to stay there for a second here because this is a Rays team. I mean, this is what's not typical at all about this Rays team. As we get into these pitching matchups, surprise, surprise, there's studs that the Rays have developed, and there's other pitchers that haven't done well with other teams that the Rays have brought in that are killing it. You know, typical Rays pitching stuff going on in 2023. But this offense, 17th in average last season, 21st in runs last season, 25th in home runs last season, number one in all these categories, number one in all these offensive categories. And you mentioned some of the guys they've got going. I have to hear, Kevin, how on earth, because this guy was available for a lot of different teams, but you mentioned Rayleigh. I would throw Betancourt in there. The guys that you've developed, like Franco, you mentioned Lowe and Walls. Kevin, Harold Ramirez. I mean, this guy, for me, has come out of nowhere. He was good last year as well, but Harold Ramirez, all kinds of teams. It's similar to like an Encarnacion, Jose Bautista in Toronto Blue Jay lore, where they came to the Jays on their like 5th or 6th. So many teams had chances at these guys, and for whatever reason, things clicked when they got to Toronto. What in particular is going on with Harold Ramirez for you guys this season, Kevin?
Well, what's really interesting about Harold Ramirez, I mean, he was really, really good last year. If you look at his numbers in 2022, he was a 300 hitter. It was just that he got hurt and he missed, a good portion of the season, 40 plus games. So he's really just building off what he did all of last year. I think showcasing a little bit more power than previously, but I just don't know if he really ever got a true opportunity or a true shot in the other places that he played at, because the hit tool seemingly always been there. It's just he needed a true shot and an opportunity and a team to really believe in him. And I think that the Rays have done that. And the organization is very welcoming to players of different cultures and different backgrounds and whatever, idiosyncrasies they may have. So maybe it was just a case of him settling into the right environment. Maybe he's just more comfortable in Cleveland and Miami compared to more comfortable in Tampa Bay compared to Cleveland and Miami. So, really, it's continuing with what he did last year, I would say.
Yeah. Coming up on Locked On Blue Jays, we'll continue our crossover conversation with Locked On Rays. And reminder that Locked On Blue Jays is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And don't forget, you can catch tonight's Jays-Rays tilt on SiriusXM. One of our new sponsors, Sorare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. Unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, Sorare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with player cards against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards, and there's no cost to play. Plus, the more you win, the more you advance, collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next-level competitions and rewards. So where MLB game weeks happen twice weekly and span a 3 or 4 day cycle. At the end of the game week, Sorare MLB managers who rank at or near the top of their leaderboards win a variety of rewards, which can include Sorare scarcity cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, and VIP experiences like meeting MLB stars. Prizes may vary depending on the competition. Head to Sorare.com/lockedon. That's SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start playing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's Sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. Together, Chris Bassett for the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's on the mound for the Blue Jays tonight is Bassett going up against Trevor Kelly, an opener for Tampa. We'll get to Kelly in a moment here. Let's start with Chris Bassett. Chris Bassett, 5-2, ERA just over 3 on the season. He comes into this game, Kevin, on a scoreless streak of 27 1/3 innings pitched. He has been spectacular. Blue Jays, his first start of the season was that start, I believe, a Sunday at St. Louis, the first Sunday game, third game of the season. He's never been rocked like that in his entire life. Everything he threw up there was absolutely dealt with by that St. Louis team that season. It was incredible, or that game. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. Blue Jays are 6-2 in his 8 starts since. The only two losses, they lost 3-1, so scored 1 run, and the other game they lost 10-8 to the Mariners. But when Bassett left that game, the Blue Jays were up 8-4. So since that first game at St. Louis, everything Bassett has done has been excellent. He's only faced 4 Rays in his career. Brandon Lowe has homered off him. Mejia's done well against him as well. Hard to say, Kevin. You'll have to predict for us if either one of those guys will even play tonight. But what I want to really highlight here for Chris Bassett, this is a night game, of course, 6:40 p.m. first pitch. You can catch all the Rays and all the Jays games, of course, on Sirius XM. Chris Bassett, whatever this guy's routine is, Kevin, for night games, it's on point. 1.13 ERA in his night games so far this season in his 6 night games. Opponents hitting just 138 versus Bassett in these night games. Now, what Ray or Rays, plural, do you feel like need to step up tonight against a veteran as locked in as Chris Bassett?
Well, generally, I would just say the veterans. It's, the guys like Wander Franco and Randy Arozarena and Yandy Diaz to kind of lead the charge there. But if we've learned anything about this Rays team, it's, those guys can go cold or have an off night, and somebody else like a Harold Ramirez or a Taylor Walls or a Christian Bethancourt can kind of pick up the load. But I think it all starts with the top of the order, and those 3 are typically cemented up there.
And then how about for Trevor Kelly? Now, I assume he's going to be an opener, right? He's only been going a couple innings.
I mean, look, I'm just going to be honest here, Craig. If the Blue Jays don't win this game or at least outpitch the opposition with the Rays, it could be a rough series, because I would look on paper and say this is the best matchup for the Blue Jays to take advantage. Trevor Kelly has struggled this season. He struggled basically his entire career. Yes, he'll just be an opener, not very experienced. And if we've learned anything about the Rays bullpen this year, it's very up and down, a lot more downs of late. So, I would think that, maybe the Blue Jays try to get an early lead and get Chris Bassett into a comfortable spot and roll and go from there. But, Trevor Kelly, outside of being a sidearmer, I don't know if there's anything that really stands out or is super incredibly impressive about him. I think it's just one of those cases like Kevin Kelly, kind of an inexperienced guy that's still trying to find his footing in the big leagues and trying to find the role that best suits him.
And Trevor Kelly, he pitched in that. Remember, the Jays and Rays were together in Toronto for a series in mid-April. Jays taking 2 of those 3 games, and Kelly pitched in one of those games. He was cruising, but he had 2 out, nobody on, then hit Kirk, and that would lead to a 2-out rally against him. So, as you said, Kevin, can't imagine we see a ton of him. What do you think Kevin Cash, or how do you think Kevin Cash and the Rays maneuver tonight? So, who else do you think we'll see pitch tonight?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, I guess it depends on the matchups and who's doing hot and so forth. I mean, typically I would think that they'd want to mix lefty, righty, and go from there. I don't really have their list in front of me, but a lot of mixing and matching, I would say.
That's a wrap.